It's time to go over the fantasy team recap for the Carolina Panthers. In this video, we're going to go over all the fantasy relevant players on this team in 2022. First up, let's start at the quarterback position with Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold began the season, he was going to be the starter. He ended up being hurt, couldn't start. Baker Mayfield was starting. They even went through Baker Mayfield, PJ Walker. It just wasn't working. Sam Darnold finally got the start in week 12 where he started playing okay. He wasn't making many mistakes, just playing it, and then he kind of fell off towards the end of the season. He ended up with 140 attempts for 58.6% completion percentage. That ended up with 1,443 yards and 7 touchdowns, with 3 interceptions, which came at the end of the year. He also had 26 rushes for 106 yards and 2 touchdowns, but that 106 yards actually landed him 21st in the 6 games that he did play. Now, Sam Darnold is nothing short of kind of an awful quarterback. I don't know if they're going to go have plans for him to be the starter next season, or are they going to look for somewhere else. But if they can't find anybody, whether in the draft or free agency, they're probably going to have to start with Sam Darnold. I mean, you could probably do a lot worse than Sam Darnold, but he's just not what he was thought to be when he was going to be the franchise quarterback for the New York Jets. So I just don't think he's the answer for the Panthers, and we'll just have to see where it goes. Now let's switch over to the running back position and talk about the running back, D'Onta Foreman. Foreman had his best season of his young NFL career by far. I think he finally found a home in Carolina. I think he ended up with 203 rushes for 914 yards and 5 touchdowns, and that ended up with 17 games that he did play, 18th in rushing yards amongst other running backs. He also had 5 receptions for 26 yards and 0 touchdowns. After the trade of Christian McCaffrey, Foreman really seemed to take over from Chuba Hubbard as the go-to running back. Next season looks pretty bright for Foreman if he possibly can land back with Carolina. He is a free agent, but it looks like Carolina may want this guy back. I mean, he was looking really good in the backfield. He was carrying the ball up in the middle, catching the ball outside the tackles. I mean, this guy was doing it all for Carolina. They could do a lot worse. I think they need to really focus on maybe upgrading a little bit more of the wide receivers, because DJ Moore's all they got out there. Possibly getting a good tight end there, upgrading their offensive line even more, and definitely getting the quarterback. So D'Onta Foreman could probably be a cheap player that they can bring back on the field and be a good asset, and probably a solid fantasy player as well. Speaking of Chuba Hubbard, let's go ahead and go to him next. Hubbard was thought to be the man this season after filling in for the injured McCaffrey in 2021. But after the trade that actually sent McCaffrey over to the 49ers, Chuba Hubbard was really unable to hold on to that lead role by the end of the season. He ended up with 95 rushes for 466 yards and 2 touchdowns, and 14 receptions for 171 yards and 0 touchdowns. Hubbard doesn't really look like much more than a backup for the foreseeable future. He lost that job to D'Onta Foreman. He never really could take over that lead back role. Now, he has had some flashes in the pan where he's looked really, really good as a running back, but I'm not sure if he has that starting number 1 running back caliber type of season in him, but he is a decent backup and somebody you can probably put on your bench, because if somebody gets hurt and he is the main starter for that team, he could probably put up some good numbers for your team. Now, moving on to wide receivers, we're going to go ahead and talk about DJ Moore. Moore was unable to reach the 1,000 yard mark for the second time in his 5-year career. Having a quarterback carousel really doesn't help his situation. Moore is really a very talented wide receiver, but doesn't have any stability at the top. It's going to be a long career for Moore until they can get a good quarterback. He had 63 catches for 888 yards and 7 touchdowns, which in 17 games did land him 26th in the league amongst other wide receivers. Moore did receive a whopping 96% of the wide receiver snaps on this team, but even though he did disappoint fantasy owners with his week-to-week stat line, he's the only reliable person on this offense. They may have Terrence Marshall on the outside, but he's really not that go-to type of guy. There's no tight end to take pressure off of him. There's not a solid running back other than Foreman did do a good job, but there's no killer like McCaffrey out there coming out of the backfield to really take any attention. They can double and even triple cover DJ Moore all they want. It's going to be a hassle for DJ Moore until they get him some help. Looks like he's not going anywhere anytime soon. He signed an extension with Carolina, and he's there. He's there with these guys, and hopefully they can build around him, get a good quarterback, and start building some more pieces so they can take just a lot of pressure off of DJ Moore, and then we'll really get to see what this guy can do. Another receiver we're going to talk about today is going to be Terrence Marshall. Overall, this was a very forgettable season for Marshall. He was almost unnoticeable for most of the season. He finished with 28 receptions for 490 yards and a touchdown. Marshall received 64% of the wide receiver snaps and was the clear number 2 option for the Panthers. But even receiving 64% of the snaps, he just didn't produce at all. Was that his talent level, or is that the quarterback play? We don't know. Could be even a combination of the two. This guy probably shouldn't be on your roster, shouldn't even be worthy of a flex, because you really have no idea when he's going to have that 10% type of good game for you, and that's just not worth it during the season. In summary, I'm going over my passes and my fails for the Panthers in 2022. Right now I have Sam Darnold as a fail, Deontay Foreman as a pass, Chuba Hubbard as a fail, DJ Moore as a fail, and Terrace Marshall as a fail. Now, the one guy that I had as a passer was Deontay Foreman. He was able to come kind of away from the steaming pile of crap that the Carolina Panthers were. He was kind of a bright spot for them. And that's all you can really say about this offense. There wasn't a tight end that I could really talk about. Nobody really was fantasy viable on this team. Not even Deontay Foreman until the end of the season, where he was kind of in the playoffs for you, giving you some solid little points there. But overall, this team is just not worthy for fantasy football. And I'm excited to see what they can do in 2023 to try to change that mindset. As always, thank you for watching the video. If you hadn't hit that subscribe button, I would really appreciate it if you guys take the time, hit that subscribe button. We're growing over here. We're throwing out some NFL fantasy football information for you guys, growing you all the way up into your drafts and throughout the season to help you get a championship for your team. And if you'd like to see what I think about the recap for the Buffalo Bills, just click here. We'll see you guys next time.